If you own a CFMoto 675 SS and your throttle feels delayed, inconsistent, or just not as responsive as it should be, this video might actually help you out. What is going on, everyone? This is my CFMoto 675 SS, and today we're going to be resetting the ECU TPS on this thing. There's obviously a reason we'll be doing that, and that's because we installed a full header back exhaust system. So obviously the bike is breathing completely differently than what it was with the stock exhaust. Now we're going to be resetting everything, letting the bike basically relearn and see if the throttle response, idle, and overall feel of the actual bike changes at all. Stay until the end because I'm going to start it up, test the throttle, and give you an honest reaction. No fake horsepower claims, just a real test to see if this actually makes a difference. So let's get into the video and we'll start off with step one. So I jumped ahead a little bit before making this video, but very simple. The first step is removing your passenger seat. Obviously, if you own the bike, you know that you put the key in here and that releases the kingpin that you are able to remove the passenger seat. Once you remove the passenger seat, what you have to do next is remove your actual seat. And to do that, you grab the edges of the seat and you pull them up like that. You will be able to see the bolts, and once you remove the seat, you're going to be able to see the insides of the actual bike. What you have to do now is you grab your negative terminal on the battery and fully disconnect it. I just put something in between the wire and the terminal so it doesn't touch, just in case, but fully disconnect it and leave it sitting just like that for 20 to 30 minutes. What this does is actually completely resets the ECU, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. So the first startup, the ECU has to read basically everything from the actual bike, and that hopefully will fix the throttle, idle, and any other things that changed a little bit once we installed the exhaust. Alright, so my camera ended up dying while I was doing the TPS reset. But what you basically have to do is when you reconnect the battery, you put your key in and you put it onto the on position. Let the cluster do the whole sequence and your fuel pump prime. And what you do with your throttle is you twist it from closed all the way to fully open in the span between 6 to 8 seconds. So you have to do it really slowly. And what you're going to do when you're at full throttle is hold it for 20 seconds. Once the 20 seconds go by, you are going to do the same sequence of releasing from fully open to close in between 6 to 8 seconds. That itself should reset the TPS so it can learn the new actual movement of the throttle body's opening. So we did step one. The TPS is now reset. Now what I'm going to do is put everything back together and roll the bike outside so we can move on to the actual ECU reset, because that one does take a little longer than the TPS would. Alright, so let me just position the bike and we'll start with the ECU reset. Alright, so the first step of the ECU reset now is we're going to prime the system. So that basically means for 3 times we're going to let the fuel pump prime and the dashboard reset. There goes the fuel pump. So that's 1. That is 2, and the very last one. Perfect. So now that we're at this step, all we have to do is do a cold start. The very important key element is while the bike is idling, do not touch the throttle at all. That is the most important part of this basic process. Once the bike is started, do not start touching with the throttle or anything. What you're going to do is let this bike basically sit at idle for 10 to 15 minutes. Do not rev the engine, ride it during this time, or anything that would disrupt until the radiator cooling fans kick on. That's when you know it's time to turn off the bike. And what that does is basically records the newly idle parameters that the ECU has picked up just because it's resetted. So it's basically relearning everything about this bike once again. That being said, I already cycled it 3 times. So let's give this thing a cold start. So now we're basically gonna let it sit. It is 12:15. So at 12:30, I will come back and basically check if the cooling fans have kicked on. So let the bike sit for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna do 15 minutes just to play it safe. But I'm gonna be honest, the idle itself already sounds way better than what it did before. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna let this bike sit and reach operating temperature. Alright, so it's been 15 minutes on the dot. The last final step before we actually go try this out is turn off your bike completely. That makes the ECU save basically everything that we just did. And now the next step is going on a ride. So let me switch you guys over to my helmet and we'll hit the street real quick and give you my honest reaction and opinion if doing all of this is actually worth it. Keep in mind, we're only doing this because I went ahead and installed a full exhaust. So hopefully the bike runs and idles a little bit better. right, guys, holy shit, this thing feels completely different now. The idle sounds perfect, not choppy or sounds like it wants to super low idle die on you. And man, the throttle response on this thing is unbelievably better. I am talking about night and day difference. I don't know if you saw, but on the clip before this, it powered wheelie, and it normally never did that right off the rip unless like I really pulled the throttle. And this thing lifted the front end like it was weightless. I'm gonna be honest, I am super glad I did this procedure of resetting the throttle position sensor and the ECU, because man, this thing woke up. If you have a 675 SS and you put a full system exhaust on, I highly recommend for you to do this. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. And at the end of the day, I know 100% that the right way to do this is obviously to get your ECU flash tuned, but that is a little bit of an issue for me since I am in California. It is nearly impossible to find any place that you can ship out your ECU and we'll get it back, because they don't want to sell to California people. No hard feelings, I understand why, but let me tell you once again, this thing feels like an absolute animal, man. Doing the reset has completely woken up this bike exactly how I expected this to do. And I'm pretty much speechless. I'm speechless, man. This thing feels amazing. I'm speechless, man. I really didn't think it was gonna do anything, but holy shit. This thing is absolutely killer. I really am speechless, man. So my recommendation for all the 675 owners, if you have a full exhaust, reset your ECU and reset your TPS, because that is exactly what this bike needs to be able to feel like a night and day difference from factory. So thank you for watching the video. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I highly recommend this, and I guess it's not a myth like I thought it was. So if you guys want to see more content about this thing, let me know in the comments down below. And once again, you guys have a beautiful day now.